but I always hated the close, to ask for the business. That was one of my Achilles heel, even though I was successful in sales. But it's interesting that statistically, actually, most salespeople do not close. Even the successful salespeople like I was, I won best performers multiple times and all that stuff, but I'd say less than half the time I actually closed for the deal. The times when I didn't close is usually the customer was the one that said, hey, let's go ahead and do this. Right. So it was kind of, I guess I was good at soft closing and all the way and having it come to me, but you do lose a lot of opportunity when you just don't ask. A lot of people statistically and research shows that just the ask increases your close rate by about 20%. Thriving in Tandem. It's a podcast for you, the married entrepreneur that wants to win in business and marriage at the same time.
Welcome to Thriving in Tandem.
Hey, Thriving in Tandem family, welcome back to this week's episode.
Hi, guys.
And we're going to talk today about reviewing entrepreneurial success and failures. I guess maybe we're going to just key in on success. But anyways, we are, as we're recording, we're kind of towards the tail end of the year. And so it's always good to reflect on the past year, right? I know we try to do that to reflect, to see the good and the bad. Kind of, we ask ourselves, what do we keep doing? What do we probably shouldn't be doing? What do we have to potentially just reevaluate, right? Because I think as years go on, we just keep doing more things and we don't always stop doing some things, which means that's why our life gets busier and busier and busier. Our calendars just get filled up and not everything is serving us well. Whether it's your personal life or your business, but we just keep doing. And if we don't stop to evaluate, audit, the things that we're doing and the successes and the failures and some of the things that maybe we're just doing just out of habit, then, that's kind of where our life is just going to slowly just kind of erode in a way that we're just doing. We're just busy, busy, busy.
Yeah, because the seasons change. And if you don't change with them, we're like, well, we've been doing this for 30 years. And you're like, well, why are you doing it? Is your heart involved? Is it something that you love? Or like, no, I don't really know why I do it. It's just what I do.
Yeah. And so that's why there's a lot of maybe like it's a lack of growth. I think we see in a lot of people, including us. That's why the end of the year, we just like to, or, as you're listening, it might be the start of the year when you're listening, or it might be in the middle of the year because, I know people as they come on, find our podcast, it's throughout the year. So you might be listening to this and it doesn't matter what time of the year. I think take this episode to heart and take some of the things we're going to talk about and evaluate what you're doing and why you're doing it. So my wife found these questions to ask ourselves. And so I have a feeling as we're going to do our end of the year planning meeting that we're going to dig into these things a little deeper, because I'll just kind of rattle off the questions to ask yourselves and ask each other. And we won't be able to dig into all of them in this episode, but we'll touch on them. Right.
Well, and I want to say too, don't wait to the end of the year to ask yourself through the year. Because you know what? Sometimes these things are good to remember your successes. We're always on to the next. And how often do we look during the year to think of the things, that are working, that, we're on target for our goals. And I don't know, to me, it's kind of exciting to think about like, oh yeah, I didn't think about what was my success for last month. And then when I look at it, I'm like, I really have come farther than I thought I had.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Because we can pick, the failures out. We can pinpoint the things that didn't work, but we don't really call out the things that worked well. And the things that work well doesn't have to be a huge thing, like a $100,000 or $1 million contract or something like that, or purchasing a new house. I mean, those are all big things, which obviously you should be proud of, but there's a lot of little things too that we just don't acknowledge. And if you think about it, we acknowledge even the little failures. And so we can nitpick anything. So it's good to kind of create some balance to your life and to just your sanity to call out even the little successes you've had. So let me just roll through these questions and then we'll come back and then we'll see how much of these that we touch upon today in this episode. But so first question, how have I grown as a person over the past 3 years? What are the biggest things that I've learned in the past 12 months? So if you haven't done so already, take out pen and paper and write these down. They're also in the show notes. So, anyways, in case
You're
you're,
driving.
yeah, exactly. Number three, what are 10 important things I've accomplished in the past 12 months? What meaningful experiences have I had in the past 90 days? How am I clearer on my goals and vision than I was 90 days ago? In what ways is my life different and better than 30 days ago? What important progress have I made in the past 7 days? What progress have I made in the past 24 hours? So these are all good questions. Good job, honey.
Thank you.
So let's go back to the first one. How have I grown as a person over the past 3 years? Okay, anything to say, honey?
For myself, I would say, and this is me being vulnerable, you guys, I'm working on that. I feel like I don't get triggered as easily as I used to in the past probably year and a half. I've been really working on that and not taking things so personally or, yeah, especially with my family. You know what I mean? It's like when we're kids, we know each other's triggers. And I feel like I've had a lot of healing in that area and growth. And I don't need to be reacting all the time to something somebody said to me. I can say, you know what? I don't really agree with that in my mind and let it go. Maybe I need to ponder on that. Or maybe it's not even worth thinking about. It's just like that's part of their personality and I'm not going to take it personally.
That's a good one, honey. So for me, it's taking more chances and being okay with not being perfect. And I shared this in a previous episode, but it's getting, it's been getting better and better and better. So this is a few years ago when we launched our book, right? And we're going to do that book tour, go around the country for 6 weeks, and we're going to have speaking engagements, yada yada yada. Well, normally I'd want to have everything buttoned up by the time we leave the door, right? But it wasn't. In fact, even the first stop was kind of up in the air, but I felt, hey, let's just get going and we'll deal with it as we go. And so and it worked. That trip worked out phenomenal. And so that was kind of the kickstart, I guess, to really, in this new era of me, I guess you can say, to really take more chances and be okay not being perfect and not getting too stressed out about it. And so definitely even these last few years and this year, just being able to get things moving with the business without having everything perfect. And then even, we talked about, when we stayed a month in Lake Norman to see where if that's a place we're going to live. And then we decided, okay, let's try for a year. I think in the past, that I would have been thinking about it a lot. And we probably wouldn't have made that move. But I remember we've been talking about it for a few years about potentially moving. And so, in 2021, we found Lake Norman. We really loved it. And we talked about potentially moving there, but we just never, and we visited there, I think, once a year since 2021. And then finally, late last year was when you said, well, why don't we try it for a month? And so, as soon as you say that, for me as a perfectionist and an analytical person, I'm trying to figure out how all this is going to work. So that's kind of how it works, right? So I think, when you talk about taking more chances, it's really that perfectionist side. I'm afraid to take chances mainly because they're trying to figure, is this going to work? What if it's going to fail? How is this all going to fit together? Yada, yada, yada. So I remember when you said that, I was like, yeah, I guess we got to try it, right? At some point. And so trying to figure out how this is going to work, being gone for a month, right? A lot different than vacation. Of course, we're going to drive there. We're going to still live and work too. Anyways, I think, and it worked out great. We drove cross country there and back. And then of course, now now we're going to move out there for a year. And so I think, being okay with not being everything being perfect. And especially, but I think we've also been able to brainstorm of how do we deal with this, right? Because I think, especially when you're talking about moving permanently, there's a lot of ifs that have to happen. Like, what if we don't even like the place? We got to find a place. We got to sell this place. What do we sell our place first and then go buy, or do you go find a place and then you buy, put an offer in on contingency of selling this place, yada yada yada. But what if we don't like it once we live there? And so those are some of the things we talked about. But then we came up with a plan that feels great. That we just will rent this place out, which we know we can get good rent for. It's a high demand area in Pasadena, and we'll go rent a place there in Lake Norman for a year. which we found when we were there in March. We found some areas that we can get a nice, lakefront rental. Um, and then it was like, well, even if we don't like it, well, I guess we just had a year long vacation sort of. I mean, we're going to work, but I mean, it's going to feel like a year long vacation on the lake, and then we move back. Right, that's worst case scenario. So, but the best case is, we really fall in love and feel that's a place to live, and then we will find a place.
Well, and the good thing about that, it's small steps, right? Baby
Yeah,
steps. We're working, so it's not so big and huge and overwhelming, and me getting triggered because I'm like, oh my gosh, how am I going to figure all this out? It's way too much. It's like, okay, let's give it a try.
yeah, and I think that's the key thing. Small steps, right? You take just make progress.
Mm-hmm.
I think, especially when you're a perfectionist, is we're thinking of the end goal, and sometimes what all gets overwhelming is the how big that step is, right? How big a risk that is versus what we're talking about, taking those baby steps and doing something, for a month. At first was vacation. You go out there for a few days or maybe even a week, right? Which we've done. And then it was, okay, now stay a month, right? So they were small steps, but incrementally there are bigger risks.
Mm-hmm.
But because we've already done the previous step, then that next step doesn't feel as risky, right? And so, anyways, I think the small steps issues is huge. I think that's where, even for me too, that's part of being able to take more chances is actually being able to determine the series of small steps to get there, as opposed to trying to bite off more than we can chew.
And I think that looks different for every couple because, everybody's got different risk tolerances. And so we thought, you know what, if we don't give it a chance now, when are we going to do it? And we really didn't want to say like 10 years down the road, oh, I wish, or I wonder what would have happened. It's like, no, let's do it now while we can.
Yeah. So let's go to question number 2. What are the biggest things that I've learned in the past 12 months?
Ooh, you want to go first on this one?
Okay. So 2 things, and one, I guess, really ties into what we just said earlier, but testing demand in a safe way. So this is kind of similar to taking small steps. For when as I was writing this answer, it was mainly in the context of business. And one of the things I learned was like, whenever you're going to test a new offer, say, because we're consultant coaches, testing a new offer, instead of just going all in and saying, here I am, promote it, market it, yada, yada, here's this new service, whatever. What if nobody shows up? What if nobody shows any interest?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Especially when you have to do something, put some money down. So, want to start doing some retreats. And so, of course, in order to do that, you got to put a deposit down on a location, yada, yada, yada. There's a little bit more to that, more investment up front to do that. But what if nobody shows interest, right? So what I've learned in our mastermind group is wait lists. Is you promote the opportunity and the idea, but you say, hey, if you want to be the first in line, so to speak, then get on the wait list. And so the wait list, how people respond to putting their name down for the wait list. Now, there's no commitment on their part, right? But they just got to show interest. And so, but the wait list shows you, hey, there's interest. And if there's not, then, well, okay, you don't do it, right? So anyways, that's like a little snippet about how you can test demand in a safe way before you go all in and making a huge investment. That's a big risk, right? And so I guess this, the other thing, what I've learned in the past 12 months is it's okay to ask what I want instead of let it come to me. So especially in business, one of the things, even though ironically I was in sales for almost 30 years, but I always hated the close, to ask for the business. That was one of my Achilles heel, even though I was successful in sales. But it's interesting that statistically, actually, most salespeople do not close.
I've heard that.
So, and even the most successful salespeople, but if you actually audit it, even the successful salespeople like I was, I won best performers multiple times and all that stuff, but I'd say less than half the time I actually closed for the deal. The times when I didn't close is usually the customer was the one that said, hey, let's go ahead and do this. Right. So it was kind of, I guess I was good at soft closing and all the way and having it come to me, but you do lose a lot of opportunity when you just don't ask. So if you don't ask and they don't, commit or whatever, then you just kind of go on your merry way. But a lot of people statistically and research shows that just the ask increases your close rate by about 20%.
That's huge.
Yeah. So I think this year I became a little bit better at just learning to ask what I wanted instead of letting it come to me. So I just use a sales example, but that's just in general in your personal life and all that, is just ask for what you want instead of kind of beating around the bush and hoping that the other person is just going to say, hey, would you want to do this, or you want to come along on this trip or whatever. But just sometimes you just got to ask.
I totally agree with that. I could piggyback on that one myself, because Robert and I were wanting to get on more podcasts, and people don't know that if you don't ask, or of your friends. Do you know so-and-so? Do you mind connecting me? Because I didn't want to ask because I was afraid of rejection. Like, people are going to tell me no, and oh my gosh, what if they say no? What am I going to do? And I learned in all that process, and still am, it's not all about me. People have their own stuff going on. They're not like thinking about, oh my gosh, I can't believe she asked me. They're thinking about what's going on in their head, not mine. And we've met so many great people, and so many doors have opened up for us. And I also asked to, we learned this from our road trip with our book tour from John. He asked at the end of the conversation, who do you know that I need to know? And I asked that question a lot. And I've met some fabulous, interesting people that I would not have met otherwise. And, people ask me the same question on me, like, oh, you need to meet so-and-so. Because I think people don't think about, we are connectors, Robert and I, but a lot of times people don't think about that until you ask them, like, who do you know that I need to know? Then you can see their like wheels turning in their head, like, let me think about that. Mm-hmm. And so I agree with you on that one.
So you're just agreeing with me? Do you have your own? I mean,
no,
I asked for 10 important things. So.
I don't know if I didn't write down 10, but no, that was like 2 right there, was being able to ask and get it over yourself. Don't be so
get over yourself.
Stuck on, oh my gosh, what are people going to think or say about me? It's like, it's not all about you. And I say that to myself.
All right. That's good, honey. So what are 10 important things I've accomplished in the past 12 months? Got one?
Are you going to keep track of them all?
Well, you got to write it. There's the questions there.
I know, but I didn't know if you're counting them.
Well, yeah, for me, I'm writing them down.
Yeah, I know. Of course you do.
Well, how do you know when you get to 10?
Well, that's why I said, are you counting them?
Yes, I'm counting them.
He's going to count mine too, you guys.
No, I'm not going to count. You do your own thing. This is not like group work here. This is self-study. Funny question, honey.
All right, well, you go ahead while I'm trying to count my 10.
Well, you don't have to say 10 right now.
Okay.
Here we go.
See,
live
guys,
on air. Live on air.
Laughing at me again.
Live on air. What are 10 important things I've accomplished in the past 12 months? So for me, one of them is I've gotten a little healthier. Now, I think I've always been relatively healthy. I mean, the way I eat, and I always do my walks. See, I got Pippa. Pippa forces me. I got to take that morning walk. So, but actually, probably about 4 or 5 months ago, I started fasting anything with processed sugar, carbs, and alcohol for the first week of every month. Started doing that. I'm not sure what led me to do that, but I did. Well, I just know, and you hear things, and I've seen the research and all that. Well, that's just not as healthy. Like anything with processed sugar, right, is just not good for you. But I would still eat anything with natural sugars, meaning coming from what you eat, right? So fruit. So I'd have still my fruit smoothies every morning, because I do my fruit smoothies in the morning with a little bit of dark chocolate in it, and on all that, which again, that's all not only just real sugars, but it's also, when it comes from food, especially like fruits, because it's high in fiber, it actually, you don't get any glucose spikes or anything like that. So you got a kind of even killed energy. It's better for you, right? It's not processed. So anyways, all to say is, and then carbs, just because of all the processed flour and the GMO wheats and stuff like that, it's just not as good for you. Even though, like, when you go to Europe, because they don't use GMO and they don't use the same processing stuff, it's more raw ingredients that you can have pastas and bread there. Like we're in Italy and
pastry.
You can have all the carbs you want, and they just don't affect you like they do here. you don't get the bloat. So I don't have celiac disease, but you get bloated, or you feel a little bit of a energy crash later on in the day if you've had it in the morning or whatever. But like there, you can just eat all you want. And I know people with celiac disease, when they go to France and Italy, they can eat all the carbs and bread if they want. Doesn't affect them. So obviously there's something in the food here, or the processing, especially here in the States, that's just not good. So even though I don't have celiac disease, but hey, once a week, let's just lay off it forever. And I try to keep light on it anyway, but hey, let's go a week without anything with processed sugar, carbs, and then alcohol. And so I just remember, towards the end, the first time I did that, towards the end of that first week, I felt better, had more energy, and it wasn't more energy. I think it was more sustained energy, more like when you get towards the end of the day, or especially towards the end of the week, I think naturally you start to get a little more tired. I think everybody does in general. You're working for a week, and so you just naturally get a little bit more tired as you get to Thursday and Friday. But I just remember that first week, it was just more sustained, and I didn't have, I still felt energetic. And then, of course, our church had that 21-day fast. So I decided, hey, let's do the same fast just for 21 days. And, I really felt really good. And so I was like, okay, let's keep that up. I wasn't going to keep fasting at 100% all the time, but I said, okay, let's, the first week of every month, I'm going to do that. And so, anyways, I think that's, it just went in. I lost a little bit of weight too. So I was able to fit into the shorts. I was able to button up the shorts I couldn't button before.
That's always good.
I still wore them. I just put a belt. But now I can actually button it. So hey, there's a plus. And then, so yeah, I think getting healthier, and then really building community, being, that was my word for the year, was build. And I really want to be more intentional about building out our community of married business owners, especially here locally, because we didn't really have a local community like that. I mean, in the work we do with our podcasts and people we know and speaking engagements, we have kind of a community at large that's national. But as far as local presence, a local community that we can just say, hey, let's go out, let's go have dinner or whatever, we really didn't have that. I mean, it's not so much we didn't have it. I mean, we know people, but it wasn't like we would get together as a group of married business owners, right? And so just this year, we just started putting on those fun events, right? As we've talked about when we got back from Italy, putting on these fun events for married business owners. And so that's how we intentionally really built our local community of that. So anyways, that's an important thing, because as we get ready to move to the Charlotte area in May, we're going to take the same principle and the same concept, and we're just going to do it over there. Right? So very important. So yeah. What about you, honey?
I would say health, exercising and stretching. Oh my gosh, my body is not happy if I'm not stretching. So that's a very important component. And alcohol. I really stopped drinking alcohol. I was having some issues with my stomach. And so, not that I was drinking that much to begin with. So I've been not having any of that. And sugar, I've been really careful how much sugar I have, because that can upset my stomach as well. So those are kind of some of the health issues.
Yeah, so I get the whole bottle of wine to myself.
Yes, you do. And the goodies.
But she still tells me you can't open up that bottle or that bottle. That's a good one.
Because he's drinking all these really good bottles without me.
It, when am I going to drink it?
He just wants them all for himself, you guys.
No, when am I going to drink it? You're not going to drink, so it's just going to sit there.
And speeches. I've been doing a good amount of speeches at Toastmasters.
Yeah.
And that was something that I wanted to do this year, and excited about that. And I believe and feel like I'm growing in that area. And I've also been working on my signature speech.
Yeah.
That it's from my childhood. And I think, how they say your platform is something that was a challenge to you. And it was challenging for me being raised as a child of an entrepreneur family. There was some good things and some challenging things. And so I am working on putting that together now to share with you guys eventually. So those are some of the exciting things.
Stay tuned.
Yes.
All right. So this will be probably the last question we'll be able to get to. So as you can probably tell, these questions are going from, the last 10 years, and we're shrinking it down to eventually 30 days, or actually, no, day. what things you've learned today. But we're not going to get there in this episode. So that's for you to kind of continue with you and your spouse. But the last question we'll talk about for this episode is, what meaningful experiences have I had in the past 90 days? So, got anything, honey?
Yeah. As Robert was talking earlier, we get a group of business entrepreneurs together once a month. A fun group, you guys. We have had so much fun. We've done dinners, we've done concerts in the beach where we saw Mamma Mia. Sorry, it was a movie. And we did see a concert in the at the park. Thank you, honey. We had a chocolate and wine pairing.
Coffee.
Oh, geez. I'm on a roll, you guys. Coffee and wine pairing.
Coffee and chocolate, honey.
Oh, coffee and chocolate.
See, she hasn't drank in so long. She keeps saying wine.
I know. And I've met so many wonderful people. And we've been having so much fun. People have been saying to us, oh my gosh, we forgot how to have fun. I'm like, really? And they're like, yeah. And they're like, this is just what we needed. And it's just so nice to be outside the box, meaning Zoom, meeting in person, and just having fun, laughter, good conversation, enjoying ourselves. And it's been lovely.
Yeah, that's good. So for me, it's helping the businesses that have been affected by the fires. It's actually in the last 90 days, we working with an organization called Dina Project. And so, as I'm sure you know, almost a year ago, 11 months ago, in the beginning of January, right after, I didn't realize it was right after New Year's. I think it was January 7th of this year, where two major massive wildfires sprung up here in Southern California. One, Pacific Palisades, which is right kind of close to Malibu. So it's right on the hillside overlooking Malibu. And then here close to us in Pasadena, in Altadena, the San Gabriel foothills here, that caught on fire and came all the way down to the city, into Altadena and then parts of Pasadena, and took out a total of over 15,000 structures between Palisades and here. So even here in Altadena, right in our backyard, over 7,000 structures just went up in smoke.
So it could be houses, businesses, churches, you name it.
Yeah, so anything that's wake. And so there's an organization I know the founder of called the Dina Project, and so they were trying to help businesses get back on their feet, basically. And so I facilitated the marketing workshop. We did a three-part marketing workshop series, and so I got to facilitate that. And yeah, very meaningful. Really getting to talk to these businesses, and just really, my heart just goes out to them, just because, for some of them, it was their home and their livelihood went up in smoke. There's a couple that we're mentoring right now, actually. They're landscapers, so they had all their vehicles and equipment at their home too. They had a pretty good sized property. So their home and their business went up in flames, right? So they're getting back on their feet. We have another gal, she's a Pilates instructor. Her garage at our house was her studio, basically. She fitted it out as a studio. And there's a couple other ones in the group that their business was at their home. And so, and it's just very sobering to hear and see what they're going through, and to be able to help them out, just get on their feet, to get them going, to see the clarity. Because, especially it's hard enough when you're doing business, but then when you have this kind of trauma affect you, you're kind of in a cloud, right? Your head's just in a cloud, and you're just foggy. Everything's just foggy. And for us, I think it's just bringing that clarity, and also the reassurance. I think I just met with a gal. She's got a store here, a storefront, retail space right up the street here. And she was kind of pivoting her business model in her store. And I said, I think that's a good idea. And so we kind of sat down and kind of came up with a plan, a little more formal plan of how she was going to, execute on that. And I think a lot of it, just the reassurance that she was on the right track, to her, I could tell, just meant everything. I think that she's like, you think so? I go, yeah, you got this. And so she said, thank you.
Well, I'm sure she did, because, losing your house is horrible. Losing your house and your business, oh my gosh. It's like, what do you have left as far as, something physical to go to? And there's so many choices that they have to make, decisions, insurance, the city, getting permits. It's just like endless. Like, where do you start?
Yeah, so I think the reassurance was huge. And I think even for me, when I was doing the marketing workshop, I like to keep things simple. And so I think that's one of the things they appreciate about it, because like you're already confused enough. So you definitely got to keep it simple. I didn't go through a whole, the 4 Ps, and I think people get a little bit more too technical and too big. And so really was just about helping them focus on what's already working and how do you improve upon what's already working.
Mm-hmm.
And what are things that even aren't working that maybe you just don't do anymore, so you can focus, put more energy, time, energy, and money into things that are already working, right? So I think creating that simplicity, but I think just the encouragement part. So I think the encouragement part, I think went a long way. And so for me, that's been a meaningful experience for me, just because you get to, in some way, you hug them. We do physically hug too, but just you also get that virtual hug of, we're in person, but I mean the virtual hug of just feeling like them feeling supported, basically.
Well, they feel like you care and you're there for them, and it's just so overwhelming with everything that they're going through.
Yeah. So with that, that's our list of how do you reviewing your entrepreneurial success and failures. But I think this was really focused on success, but really we encourage you to take this time and just review the past 12 months and go, okay, hey, what's working? What are things I should be celebrating? Things that I've grown as a person and as a business owner, and look to see what I continue doing and what I continue to build upon. And so, yeah, I think that's it. What do you think?
That's great.
So if you've been impacted by this episode and this topic, please share this with another married entrepreneur that needs to hear this, and go ahead and go through these questions with your spouse tonight, or at least over the weekend.
And let us know how it goes.
All right. Till next week, God bless. Thank you for listening to the Thriving in Tandem podcast. Please visit our website, marriedentrepreneur.co, for a variety of free resources to help your marriage and business succeed.
And feel free to leave us a review and share this episode with another married entrepreneur. That would mean so much to us.
See you next week.